Hey, I'm Daniel Berger, and this is Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Welcome to the podcast where Metro New York real estate meets great stories and a douse of humor. Forget the dry sales talk. Here we dive into the fun and unexpected moments of real estate. Join me each week as we explore Westchester, Long Island, the Bronx, and more. You'll hear about the people, the places, and the crazy situations that make this industry so interesting. Thanks to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, we're ready to share the lighter side of real estate. Whether you're a pro, a buyer, or just curious, we've got something for everyone. Ready for today's adventure? Let's get into it. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger. I'm Daniel Berger, and this week I'm excited to have Sharene Long. She has 6 years experience in real estate, more experience in other things, and we'll get into that. She's currently with Douglas Elliman, and she's a great person. I actually met Sharene at a holiday party, and yeah, it was actually at the end of the at the end of the event. I walked over. We had a brief conversation. I'm like, Sharene's the exact type of person I want to have profile on the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. She had a such great demeanor. We chatted about a couple of things, and I think we were both like on the same page. And so, don't you always like to have someone that has the same ideas as you? So, with that, Sharene, thank you very much for coming on, and it's great to have you. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Daniel. It's a pleasure to be here. And, it's definitely an honor for sure.
So I mean, we actually bellied up to the bar. I don't think either of us had a drink in hand when we first met, um, and we were just all about business, right? I think we talked about like handling clients and whatever we talked about. It just seemed we certainly clicked. So you've been 6 years in real estate. I guess what did you do before real estate that got you thinking that you might want to do real estate?
What I did before real estate is I did a number of things. I was a debt collector for several years prior to me becoming a debt collector and being a top debt collector. I did used to help my parents and family find places to live. I would call apartments for them and speak on their behalf. And my father would was like, you're really good at this. You should go and get your real estate license. And I'm like, whatever. This is embarrassing. I don't want to have to call for you guys. You should do it yourself. But the more I got into my career of customer service, being a debt collector, and then also working for the corporate office for Illy Cafe, and just having a degree in public relations as well, dealing with the public, it all tied in to me actually pursuing becoming a realtor. The year my father died, I was working at an auto body shop. I was a manager of an auto body shop, and one of the customers came in, and he's like, you're sitting behind that desk finding cars to sell. Find me a house to sell. And he's like, and I'll pay you. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, I'll pay you. He's like, there's a lot of abandoned houses in Westchester. And at the time, the shop I was working at was in Mount Vernon. And when he said that, I'm like, there are a lot of abandoned houses. So what I did is I used my skip tracing tools from being a debt collector to start reversing addresses of vacant properties that were, left to children that moved out of state. And I started to actually find deals for these investors. And, I went to real estate school once I found out that I can get paid much more as a licensed realtor. And the rest is history.
I think what I see about you is that you're really a go-getter and you see things and you make things happen. I want you to know that I when I was reviewing a little bit about you for a conversation, I saw that you work for Illy Cafe. Um, that ties us in a little bit. I was in the coffee world for 20 years, and actually I worked for Green Mountain Coffee Roasters for like 12 of those years.
Oh, that's so.
And I also learned that, working, so it's funny. So it's like, how did I become a real estate agent? It's really, I was working in sales for a solar company, and the company went bankrupt. And my wife and we're like, okay, what are you going to do when you grow up? Although it was like 8 or 9 years ago, I kind of grew up, but what am I going to really do for the next phase of my life? And my wife's like, you should be a real estate agent. So it's interesting that we were both in coffee. We both had a very close family member say, you need to do this. And maybe it was just a way for my wife to get me out of the house and never to see me on weekends again. So that
Oh no.
it's that's still open for debate if that was the reason. But what's interesting is in other jobs, I had looked at some other jobs, and some of them required weekend work, and I'm like, I don't really want to work weekends. And now look at us, right? It's um I mean, I guess
Well,
the difference now is we don't know when it's the weekend because you've worked every single day. So what's the
yeah,
difference between Saturday and Tuesday?
all the days run into each other, but the beauty of it is that, we're able to make our own schedule. So, if we don't want to work a weekend, we can just take one weekend off out of the month if we work really hard and we deserve it. And that's that. And we also get to make our own schedule for our families too, which is the beauty of it.
I mean, that is true that we get to, we do own our schedule, but sometimes we're owned by the schedule in the sense, but yes, if there's a family event, you want to block it, absolutely do that. A lot of times, we're working a lot with clients that we've been working on for either multiple transactions or so they're going to understand if you're like, well, I can't do it this time, but I can do it that time. So I think if that's where we need to be creative to kind of give other possibilities of when we can do it. But it does seem like last Friday night, I remember I was at someone's birthday party, and then I get the text that says, "Okay, I want to see this house tomorrow morning." So it's like, okay, get the phone out. It was
Mhm.
one of those. It was a vacant house, so it was easy to set it up. And you're like, okay, I didn't think I was going to be showing a house at 8:45 in the morning on a Saturday, but now I am.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well,
but
that's how it goes. Sometimes you gotta go the extra mile for your client, and that's because you want the same to be done for you if you were in the same situation.
absolutely. Do you So what inspires you in to be the best that you can be? Is there something that would you say that it was something specific, or is it more in general?
Well, my inspiration, for my career is my daughter. She's 15 years old. She's turning 16 on Sunday. So, I do everything for her. And then we do have a dog who I call her dog sister. Her name's Ella. She's 9 years old. We've had her since she was 6 weeks old. She's a rescue dog. And she's a Dachshund Boston Terrier. So she's a hot dog. So that both of them are my motivation, and and just being able to not have boss. I've worked a lot of 9 to 5 jobs my whole life up until almost 7 years ago when I became a full-time realtor. And it didn't allow me to do things with my daughter in terms of having field trips with her, going to school to be one of those parents to participate for events, even though now she's in high school and that doesn't really happen. But when she was in cheerleading, was able to go to her cheer gigs and things like that, and things that just wasn't really permittable with me having a regular 9 to 5
I
with the supervisor and boss.
I've had other jobs where I was able to do those things. My children are now 25 and 21. But you're still like when you're working for someone else, like you do have flexibility to go do those things, but you always felt like you had to like say where you were or whatever. And now it is a totally different feeling that if you want to, do something with your child, like my daughter ran in the New York City Marathon,
Yeah,
and that's obviously on a weekend. And I basically said for my clients for open houses, like I'll have someone else fill in for me this week, but I have to do I have to do that. And
yeah.
and ultimately, if you're working really hard for your clients, they want you to have a life too. So
Mhm.
they'll let you do it. Of course, when they want to see a house, they do want to see a house. Um, I think, and that's also important to have like somebody, a teammate or a colleague that you can do some work for, that they can do work. So I try to make myself available that when my agents are busy, that I'll show houses for their clients because I want to help them as a broker. I want to help them, but I also want to help them, as a friend and as a colleague. So, do you have
Yeah.
someone that you do that with that you sometimes that they'll show for you or you'll show for them?
I do have several colleagues like that because I do travel every so often. So when I do travel, I don't like to not let my buyers see properties. So I do have colleagues who fill in for me when I have to leave to go out of the town, or just sometimes, I typically don't do that when I'm here. My clients are very selfish about me. They're like, if you're
Right.
here, we want you to show us who's this person. So, it's only if I'm not here physically that I do that. So, but that'll probably change for 2025 because I am going to be building a team because, I can't do everything myself anymore. And I need a clone, but unfortunately, my parents didn't have twins, so I'll never have a clone.
Exactly. I mean, so that's interesting. So you're 6 years or so in real estate. I'm 8 years in. But I quickly created my own brokerage, which is really I treat it like a team. The only difference is that I'm the broker, so I don't have to listen to anyone, right? So, kind of why I did it was exactly what you said, that I don't want to have to listen to these silly rules that other people, set up because that's what helps. That's what they want. For me, I follow what the rules are, right? So tell me what the rules are with HGAR, with NAR, you know, tell me what the rules of the game are. I'll certainly comply with the rules and follow them, but anything else, I want to be able to be me and I want to be able, and so that's the people that generally join, my brokerage are people that, I'm trying to help them be the best agents that they can be. And I try not to have rules in place of like, you know, commission splits. I don't tell they're independent contractors. They can pick what they want to do. As long as it's as long as it's following the rules, I'm generally pretty supportive. So yeah, so you starting it, I certainly can understand the desire to want it to start a team. So that's certainly good luck with that.
Thank you.
Um, it's it's hard, right? So I would say that um, I do about this year. I've done about 60 transactions myself, and then I also have the team that probably did another 70 transactions. So,
Nice.
um,
Congratulations.
thank you. That just means that I'm very busy and always available. And so even like every night, it's like I had a phone call at 11:15 because it was a junior agent and something came up and it was important to get on the phone right away so that we could proactively solve the issue. That's what you're going to be in for as a team lead. But it is rewarding though. I love when I see, you know, my agents flourish and closing things and especially ones that really got hard that we put our heads together to figure out what's best. You know,
Absolutely.
how do you plan about recruiting people that you want to be on your team?
That's a good question. I haven't given that much thought because, I feel like if a lot of people know how much I've sold, I have not sold. I do have around 70 transactions a year between rentals and sales. But it's not just solely sales, but people know that, I get stuff done. So I would like people to join me based off of that. But then when people see how hard I work, or if I don't know if they have a problem retaining information, like they're intimidated by me. So, but then those are people I want to have on my team ideally, because it's not rocket science what it is. I feel like while no day is the same in real estate, it is all repetition. Each deal is different, and every day in real estate is different. It is all repetition in some way, shape, or form. So, I have to figure out how I want to recruit people. When people do go to my brokerage and sit with my broker, and they express how they want to join my team, I think they think they're entitled to get in the same split as me, and that's why they don't want to come and join, and that's fine. I'll just continue to be by myself, but it
I
is.
mean, yeah, that's, I would say that that is difficult, right? I
Mhm.
actually became a broker pretty early because my first place that I went to, the split was like insane. It was insanely low. And I was like, I'll never be able to make money doing this. And so it was a little bit my view is that person probably should have done a better job of understanding what
Mhm.
math, um, because it kind of drove me to somewhere else and then that other place. So the first couple of places that I were at taught me what not to do, or taught me how, when I run the show, how I want to do it. So my splits are not like that with my current team. They're pretty high. Um, you know, team people on the team are going to need to be fed, right?
Yeah.
Either, working with your rental leads, or, I do a lot with um other, Zillow and Realtor and other lead
Mhm.
generation systems, because that's slightly a value that I bring to other agents, is that I'm able to have their phones ring,
Mhm.
but it's still hard, right? Like, you know,
Yeah, because you
uh,
have to, convert those leads, and not all of them are ready to buy in the next 90 days. And a lot of realtors don't understand that. They think, oh, I show them 4 houses, they need to buy something. No, this is deeper than that. It's way deeper. These are people's lives. Like, it's kind of like the real estate
no,
sopranos, like the real estate sopranos. This is people's lives. Like, what are you doing?
I mean, I totally agree that people say weird things like, I I follow a lot of real estate groups like on Facebook. I
Mhm.
generally don't ever comment because most of them, if I actually said the words that came to my mind, wouldn't look so good, because it's kind of right. It's hard, and you have to take those leads and you have to nurture them. And some people are like, well, if I show 15 houses and they don't, and they're not buying, then I don't want to work with them anymore. I'm like, what? I'm like, you
But
can't.
that's not how it works. I have
It's
some clients, if that I work with for 4 years. They have life happens to clients, especially if clients have busy children or children with special needs. They got to look for 6 months, then you won't hear from them for another 6 months because something came up. Life happened, and then they want to resume next year. People have different reasons, but that doesn't mean that you leave them hanging. When they're ready, they're ready. It's a
I
decision.
I agree. My record for showings is 205 showings over 13 months. Um, and then I also have gotten multiple ones that have been one or zero because I did it on FaceTime. So it's it's
Mhm.
it's it's kind of like the law of averages. But the biggest thing is, it's I tell people that I will show them houses, all day. I will show them houses as long as they need to, until they find the proper one that makes sense for you, because really, we're not good agent isn't really worried about one transaction. We're worried. Our goal should be clients and satisfying clients, because
Yes.
because that satisfied client has friends, they have family, they might sell it, they might buy something else, they might want to buy, so um I guess one question is how many what's the most amount of deals that you've transacted with one client or one family?
The most amount of transactions I've done with one family, I think was seven. Yeah.
So that exactly. And that speaks to how great a customer service person you are and how you care about that you dot I's and cross T's because you keep getting the business and a lot
Mm.
could go wrong in seven transactions, but people know that you are focused on helping them and
Yeah.
bringing in experts. So that's a great number. That
Thank you, thank you.
yeah. So and it and
So,
in
so
that
what's the most amount of transactions you've had for?
I've probably had I would say seven would be my number two. And it was a Zillow lead. It was somebody who brought their dog with them. And I'm like, and they're thinking like that the dog could go into the house. And I'm like, I can't let I go without. I said, and so it was funny because I actually live in the town that I started showing them. So I have a backyard. I have dogs too, and I actually brought the dog over to do a play date with my dogs, and then we started showing houses because I'm like so you're
Oh,
right. Sometimes buyers think that they can do that. We're like, no, no, no. I'm not allowed to bring a dog into someone else's house without permission. People could be allergic. There's a lot of different things. So as
yep.
you know, things sometimes happen, and like while your eyes might be like, oh my God, how can I diffuse the situation? So in that case, I had a play date for my two dogs with theirs. They ended up buying a place. They then bought another place, another. They did five, and then I did their brother did has done actually uh six, and then the brother's place is actually on the market now, and we're
Oh,
looking for
wow.
another one. So it actually is six, and it's going to go to eight.
Um,
Um,
nice.
so yeah, I do, and and obviously investors, the more that you can help them find something that they can either hold for a rental or buy and flip.
Mhm.
Um, but that's it certainly makes it easier, right? Getting new clients is hard, right? It's hard. So certainly it's easier to do that.
Well,
What do you
I feel like it is hard, but then it's not hard. Sometimes I could be out of the grocery store just on the phone with the client, and I'm a loud person. I'm probably sound like I'm in stereo right now, and I'm just like talking about real estate and people. I get off the phone, I'm like, "Oh, I overheard what you're talking about. Can you tell me more?" And I actually pick up clients like that, and I'm like, "Oh, that's my one of my signs that I feel like I should be going back to prospecting. I used to do a lot of cold calling as prospecting. I still prospect just in different ways. But I used to have these where I would make like over 100 calls until I reached my 25 contacts. And I remember there was one month several years ago where I got 12 listings in one month off of cold calling, and it was just great. It was just absolutely amazing.
that is amazing. I've never cold called in the 8 or 9 years that I've done business. Um, but that's just not me. I am loud. I would say that I'm louder than you because that's what everyone tells me that I'm really loud. Um but I think that's great that you do that. So I have an interesting story, which is a little similar. My wife was on the train headed to work, and she overheard someone saying that they needed a really good, top tier real estate agent in a town on Long Island. And my wife's from that town, and my wife's good friend's mother, who's 80 years old, is still a real estate agent, and she's tops. And from my wife being a busybody and snooping, basically got that person's phone number. The house ended up selling for $2 million. The listing agent got both ends of the deal, and and my wife produced a referral check of $10,000.
Nice.
So Um, exactly. And I was like, I showed the check and I was sharing the, I'm like, way to go, Elise. But so I think referrals is another, right, another way that we can grow our business where, how often do you have it where somebody sells a house and then you help them find a realtor and wherever they're moving to?
It all depends where they're moving to. If it's somewhere that's like within an hour, under 2 hours from Westchester County, I'll just take them myself
Of
to find,
course.
and then I'll do a double closing with helping them sell and also downsizing. Or just, if it's a first time homeowners, because sometimes as much as someone wants to live in Lower Westchester or New Rochelle and have a single family here, it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes for your first house, you have to get something in like Orange County or Dutchess County and then let it build equity. And then in 5 or 6 years, when you have equity, you can sell that and then really get the house that you want in Lower Westchester. So situations like that. And then I also help older clients in the Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens with selling their multi-families and bringing them up to Westchester into like a condo or a luxury building that I help with will help with leasing at, and things like that, and because they're liquidating their assets 9 times out of 10, if they are purchasing, they're able to purchase all cash. And that's also something that I point out to them because not a lot of realtors do that. A lot of realtors just list the house and they're like, okay, thanks for letting me sell your house. Now you're homeless. And they just kind of just go on their way.
Right. That no,
They,
that's
they put
certainly a
up the peace sign and
I
they
know
leave.
that's what I always say to people. Where are you going? Right. So that's where I lead any of my listens. Well, where are you going and what's the plan? Because I need to know, are they going to go into a rental? Are they going to stay with family? Like I love when they say, like, oh, we can stay with family because then you can sell their house and they don't have to worry about buying until after they sell. Because the
Yeah,
worst thing to do is to have them buy something and then we can't sell their plates, right?
yeah.
So no, I'm talking about like referrals of people moving to Florida, North Carolina, where it's something to think about because I've
Yeah.
gotten many, many, many referrals from, and
Mhm.
from even in one of my clients was NYPD.
Yeah.
He he started investing in Florida, and he got a lot of his teammates were doing it. Where that person produced 10 referrals for me.
Oh, nice. Well,
So
I've only done referrals for Florida, and actually, I haven't talked to her in a couple of years. Like, I've only had one client, one seller who's actually wanted to move out of state. Which is very peculiar now that I think about it. It's like everyone still wants to stay in New York.
I mean, I've actually found people in other parts of the world. Because I'm like, oh, I have a client that wants to move to Portugal. So would you take it on? And then I can do through internet, I can do searches and find out and then interview them. And so
Yeah,
I've gotten referrals around the world for
nice.
people that because they don't know what to do, right? So this way I'm going to vet them out. So that's an interesting thing to do
Yeah,
as like a side and you're not showing 205 houses, you're just basically making a connection
making the
and
call.
then if something happens then you get a commission on it, so it's not bad. um so
So,
when people
so the moral of that story is I should just encourage my sellers to move out the country and out of state more. No.
or that's one, or just be a busybody like you know how to do. And if you hear people that are interested in buying a place elsewhere or they have friends moving, um I mean, I have a client right now that they're selling something in Westchester and then they're also with a husband passed and so she's moving into a rental, but she also had a property upstate.
Oh,
So I was able to find an agent. Actually, it's an agent who purchased one of my other properties that I sold
okay.
upstate. So,
Okay, nice, nice.
it's just like as you said, every day is a different day. You pick up the phone and there's a new issue, and
Mhm.
how do you solve that, and how do you proactively, move ahead? As it's nobody likes to hear a complainer, so you pick up the phone and then
Oh, yeah.
you try to problem solve.
Yeah, of course. Good point.
So. So that's so what's going to be interesting is for you to try to building out a team. I know that you operate at up way up here, and so you're going to want to make sure that the people that you bring on board are there, or at least can get up to there, and
Yeah.
that's and what's hard is that the people that you've worked with, they know that Sharene has his secret sauce, and it's hard to recreate the secret sauce.
Yeah, and I think they're a little intimidated by the secret sauce. And I'm like, come on, y'all. It's not that bad. Just
And
get
you
on the
what
good.
have other people come to you who thought about getting into real estate, and what advice do you have for them?
People have come to me and I tell them, it's a great career. If they love helping people and they have patience, they would do very well. And because everyone needs a place to live, like literally everyone. That is the way of our country. So it's like, why not help the people and be well and good at helping them with that goal. And I do put people in touch with a real estate school that is actually one of the New York State real estate schools, A1 real estate school on White Plains Road. They're next to the previous brokerage used to work for. So I always give them the owner's number for there, tell them, he offers all the classes that they need, and I also let them know they can take their state tests before they take any classes. And if they pass that, that's just one less test you got to worry about. And you can pay $15 for it. And then, it makes the process less stressful. You just got to worry about the classes and then the tests for the school.
Yeah, so my view is that I just want people to come in with eyes wide open. I'm like, because clearly what's difficult about real estate is you have to work a lot of hours. It's more hours than you think, especially in the beginning, right? Like if you become a seasoned person with 10 or 15 years and you have a lot of clients from the past, well, maybe then you don't need to prospect anymore, right? Because you can kind
Mm-hmm.
of work your book of business. But, it's hard, it's hard to drop what you've done to then start going full time. And if you're not full time, it's very difficult too, right? Because clients want to see houses all the time. And if you're like, oh, I have another job or whatever, it's you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's much more glamorous, right? If you watch Million Dollar Listing and all the other real estate shows. It's the same thing for our investors, right? That have watching, the flipper flops and other TV, HD TV to television shows. It's not always the way that it is in the movies and on television.
No, that's very true. And they do have to, even with the way it is on television, those agents you see on TV, they do work 12, 24 hours a day. Like I tell everyone, I work 12 hours a day. Like I don't care what you see online on my Instagram page or like, oh, you look so nice today. I went to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, the night before. Every night, that's my bedtime because
That
I
is, I
love.
think that's one of the things we talked about because that's the same for me. Uh,
Mhm. But it's
but
like, these are the things that people don't see. And yeah, the things that we see on TV is very nice. I've had the privilege of being in some of those multi-million dollar listings, $34 million listings, but it's like, I earned it. So but it's not all glitz and glamour. And people, I tell people that and they're like, huh, what? And I'm like, yeah, exactly what I said. you know but you have to have discipline and you have to be passionate about it for sure.
so that's what I sense about you is just like you have a positive attitude, you're upbeat, like a smile when you talk, and so I feel I'd like to look like you when I'm doing real estate because what it's basically saying is that you're passionate about it, you like helping people, and you understand the business to be able to be that professional for people.
Yeah.
So that's important. What do you interest rates go up and down. Um, they're not at the highest they've been ever, and they're not at the lowest that they've been more recently. When clients, talk about interest rates, which again, there's always interest rates and they go up and down. How do you guide people during the interest rate conversation if people are thinking now's not a good time, now is a good time? How do you handle that with clients?
So the way I handle that with clients is I let them know that what goes up must come down. I remind them that while the interest rates are high right now, and it's super annoying that they are higher than they were obviously 4, almost 5 years ago, it's better to buy now because you have less competition when it comes to putting in the offer. And I also let them know you're still getting multiple offers on properties, even though the interest rate is at 7%. I'm like, so just know that's not stopping much person. And all you really need is one person to buy a house. Multiple buyers cannot buy one house. So as long as they acknowledge that and receive that, then they understand with them purchasing and 14 months of them paying their mortgage, as soon as they see the interest rate go down to, God willing, 4.5% or 4%, that will be the time for them to refinance. And I also remind them it's always better to refinance earlier in your 30-year loan opposed to later, because you're in essence starting all over again. But the beauty of doing the refinance is if the house has increased equity at that point, or if they've done improvements for the house to have increased equity, they could do a cash out refinance and take those funds to go ahead and purchase a second property with me.
Yes, if you want to lever yourself. Not everyone, that's a riskier thing. But so I agree 100% with you that interest rates being higher has less buyers. So if we're representing a buyer, we're going against maybe two, three, or four offers. When
Mhm.
interest rates were 2%, 6 years
Yeah, 30.
ago or whenever it was, there were 15 to 20 offers that you would have to go against. It was actually much, much harder. And agreed. And what's also interesting is when the interest rates were low, people like if a buyer said $5,000 is what I can spend per month, then a $500,000 house, they would just bid $650,000 because they're like, oh, I can afford it during my
Yeah.
monthly payment. So they were creating inflation and creating higher price houses. And now that's happening a little less where you're getting a more fair price on the house. Your
Mm-hmm.
interest rate's a little higher, but again, like you said, interest rates go up and down, and when they do cycle back down, which we don't know when that is, but when they do, you'll have some latitude to be able to refinance. So,
Absolutely. You
the
got.
other thing.
I would like to say you got to stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Yes, that's great. And then the other thing is, let's say if someone had a house for a 30-year mortgage and then they own it for 5 years and interest rates come down, you don't always have to go back into a 30. You can do a 15-year. There are
Mhm.
other things that you can do. So you could actually eliminate more years with rates coming down. I remember I've owned my house since 1997.
Nice.
Um, so in the time that rates have gone up and down, I did at one point convert a 30-year loan into a 15-year loan. It was the same payment. So
Mhm.
so that was one way for me to try to lower the term. And now I'm old and gray and have no mortgage. So that's I haven't been there, so 30 years, but we paid it off. But that is so
Great.
there's many strategies, right? So our job is really just to let our clients know what are the possibilities and then let them pick strategy that works best for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the beauty of it too, about being an informative agent. A lot of realtors aren't that innovative to think outside the box to give that information. And I feel like clients, they know when you know what you're talking about. They'll be like, you
Yeah.
know their stuff. And other people, they'll be like, I don't know about that person. They're little shady boots or
Well, that maybe that's why we're both doing so well, is because people see that, right? But there's a low barrier to entry for a real estate agent, which means that people get into it who might not be the right fit for it. And
Yeah.
so
Or they
sometimes
get
that's,
it for the wrong reasons too. They're like, oh, I want a big check. It's like,
you know,
that's not,
it's not that big of a check because you have to pay for your own health care. You have to pay for your own retirement fund. You have to, we don't have a weekly income or biweekly income that where someone's depositing money into our account. It's
yeah,
you eat what you kill
yeah.
in essence. So
You have to budget yourself. I always tell clients, especially with the new NAR law that's passed with the buyer's commission. I was collecting buyer's commission from when I started selling houses. And my first house I sold, it was in December 2018. And then the following month, I started getting 2% buyer's commission from all of my buyers because of I would go above and beyond. But I would tell clients, they're like, oh, you guys get paid a lot of money. I'm like, do we? Like, let's play a realtor's game. Let's act like you're the realtor. These are three houses that you like. You have a client you want to take to see the house. On average, what are the number of transactions that your average realtor sells per year? And I would make the couple or the buyer guess. And they're like, oh, well, and then the answer is between 4 to 6 transactions a year for your average realtor. So that means they don't know when their next check is coming from. And this is if they're selling houses. So I then asked them, well, which one of these houses would you bring your client to and why? At the time when I was playing this game, we would still have the commission at the bottom. So I'm a very transparent person. And I don't like to prove people wrong, but sometimes you have to break things down to people in simpler terms because everyone did not go to real estate school and they're not realtors. They're not in this industry. So each of the customers would pick the listing that had 2% commission. And one would have 2%, one would have 1%, and the other one would have like a 0.5%. And then I'm like, well, why would you choose that one? They're like, because I don't know the next time I'm gonna sell a house. And I'm like, okay. So as a listing agent, because I am a listing agent, I typically collect, 6% for my listings. I'm like, so I'll get anywhere between 4 to 6% if there's a buyer's agent involved. I'm like, so in most cases, when I'm working with a buyer, I am in essence taking a pay cut from my normal pay. So I do ask my buyers if they're willing to match the 2% that I would be missing to get my minimum base pay of 4%. And then, usually it's the husband's like, well, I don't know, $16,000 is a lot of money on a $550,000 house. And I'm like, is it? Oh, let's play another game. How long does it take the house to close? And then, I tell them 45, 60, or 90 days, or sometimes I'll do 60, 90, and 120 days because you never know. And then they'll guess. And then I'm like, well, on average, it takes 90 days. Let's take that and let's divide that up over 90 days. Then out of those 90 days, I'm working 12 hours a day for you to stalk the MLS. Bro, when that brand new house is posted on the MLS right at 12:01 midnight. So I can send it to you for as soon as you wake up, and I'm like, how much is that? They're like, oh, it's like $7 an hour. So they're like, by the time I'm saying that, they're like, okay, where do I sign?
right. I mean, that's the beauty, is that everyone gets to have a different strategy and you have to do what's best for you. And I think that's what's interesting about real estate, right? Is that there's no set way. Um, and so it's just us figuring out, the game and then playing it and then just being true to ourselves and being, you know, uh, true to our clients and let them see what it is, and then let them, if they want to work with you, they're going to work with you. And if they don't, then there's plenty out there. They can go find somebody else. And so,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So, but it's and breaking it down in simple terms. Like if I don't break it down, I feel like if a lot of realtors were to break it down or be transparent with their clients, like that law never would have been passed. It's just, I just feel like it's just, there hasn't been enough transparency.
Well, well, what I'm going to say is about the NAR. It's not a law. It's a settlement with the Department of Justice. Um, so we don't have to follow that. You do have to follow it if you want to be a member of the National Association of Realtors, which
Yeah,
allows us to say that we're realtors. So it's the whole thing.
yeah,
My view is that National Association of Realtors sold us down the river. They basically just wanted to stop getting sued. So they
mhm,
basically tried to make an agreement with the federal government, the Department of Justice, to stop lawsuits. Who knows if that's even going to happen? And as you know, the Department of Justice actually has said we're not even sure if we like that agreement. So it was kind of interesting that
yeah,
we changed before the government even approved it formally. It's I guess what I would say is that it's still to be determined, and it's
yeah. We gotta see how
um
things play out. But if you're a good agent, your client's gonna pay your worth at the end of the day. If
and
you
I
don't have to really worry about that.
I agree with that, and that's why I don't really answer anything in Facebook about these groups, because in the end of
Yeah,
the day, we just have to buy and sell houses. We have to represent our clients.
that's
The game's going to change. Just tell us what the game is, and you and I will do what we're supposed to be doing, either through a rule or a law or whatever.
exactly.
Um, so that's why think life, or to be a real estate agent, you have to understand things change, right? It's not going to be the way that it was a long time ago. So that's what we do. So I'm going to wrap up. But do you have anything else to add, or anything about us or real estate, or what your plans are, or anything like that?
Um, I really don't have anything else to add. It was a delightful conversation that we had. I'm very happy that we were able to have this chat and, just we both have to keep killing stuff for 2025. I strive to have 120 transactions next year, and I'm sure you want to triple your number of 60 transactions. So what that be? What, 180?
I actually, I actually don't do that. I don't say that, and I don't do budgeting because I can't. When my phone rings, I have to make my phone ring, but I have to basically do what I got to do with people that are calling me, right? And so I can't force 10% more sales or 10% whatever. I've just for my 9 years, I've just been like doing the right thing, trying to meet people, trying to have, and then try to be proactive in making things happen. But if I do 50 next year, then I do 50 next year. So,
Yes.
um, and also the number of transactions it's kind of like it's the number of transactions and price points. But I'm not going to tell someone, well, you're a $200,000 price point. That's too low for me. I
Oh
need
no.
to, right? So it's like you treat people as people and as clients. And so um, those numbers just happen to happen. If they happen next year, great. If it's lower or more, I'm okay with that. So that's why I'm like different, because it's really about helping people, which is I know
Mhm.
what you do. So it's helping people. Whatever the number is what the number is. Um,
Yeah,
Doing the right thing every single day. That's all that we can do, and we'll go from there.
absolutely.
So with that, I want to thank you, Sharene, for joining us for this week's episode.
You're welcome.
For
Thanks for having
thank
me.
Thank you for everyone else. It's the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger. And until next time, thank you very much for listening in. Thanks for joining me on the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I hope you enjoyed our time together as much as I did. If you laughed, learned something, or just had a good time, do yourself a favor and subscribe to the podcast. A big shout out to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, for making this all possible. Remember to leave a review if you enjoyed the show. It helps more people find us. Until next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep exploring the adventures in your neighborhood. I'm Daniel Berger, your New York realtor, and I'll see you in the next episode.